Hey there, my name's Paul, and this is Out of Neutral, a weekly tune-up where we look to the Bible to get in gear and follow Jesus into the life he came to make possible. Today I want to talk about what God is up to in our trials. Sometimes it's hard to understand what God is thinking when we face painful circumstances. Knowing God could have prevented the trial we're going through makes us question his heart toward us. Is he cold, stern, and uncaring? Does he just stand aloof and watch us suffer? I was helped in dealing with some of these questions by Dane Ortlund's book, Gentle and Lowly, The Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers. Three insights stood out. First, Jesus' heart is gentle and lowly. Ortlund shares how his father learned from Charles Spurgeon that there's only one place in all of the 89 chapters that make up the Gospels where Jesus describes his own heart. In Matthew 11:29, Jesus famously says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls." The word translated gentle is the same word that appears in the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus talks of the blessedness of the meek. And in 1 Peter 3:4, where he talks of the beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Jesus' heart is the opposite of overbearing, self-serving, and aggressive. He's meek and gentle. The word lowly describes someone who's humble in James 4:6 and 1 Peter 5:5. But it can also describe someone's circumstances. In Luke 1:52, it speaks of those in poor conditions or humble estate. In 2 Corinthians 7:6, it's translated as downcast. Jesus lowers himself and comes down to our level. His birth in a manger set the tone for everything that followed right up till his death. Ortlund clarifies, when the Bible speaks of the heart, it's referring to what he says is the central animating center of all we do. He says it's what gets us up out of bed in the morning and what we daydream about as we drift off to sleep. Jesus is first and foremost gentle, meek, and down on the ground with us in humble concern. Second, God is all about mercy and grace. Some might think that might be how Jesus describes himself, but God seems a lot angrier than that in the Old Testament. Ortlund is helpful again in taking us to the foundational description of God in the Hebrew Scriptures. Exodus 34:6 and 7 is God's revelation of himself to Moses, and the Old Testament authors quote it again and again. God passes in front of Moses saying, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. But it will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. God doesn't reveal himself as critical and stern or impatient and uncaring. He always leads with mercy and grace. When there's anger, it's been a long time coming. He doesn't have a short fuse or a quick temper. He's responsible for justice, and that includes his judgment. But he warns that our sins will impact us in several generations. But his love and forgiveness, they'll reach to 1,000 generations. In other words, the impact of his love and forgiveness on those who turn to him is without limit. Mercy, grace, and forgiveness are at the center of God's heart toward us. But finally, God takes no pleasure in your pain. It's comforting to think of God in these ways, but because we long for his mercy, grace, and gentleness. But those qualities are hard to reconcile with the painful trials we often go through. Is God powerless to do anything? Or is he usually merciful but turns stern when he has to teach us a lesson? Ortlund points to Lamentations 3:33 for the answer. The verse appears in a book that is all about grieving. The people are reeling from the most gruesome disaster in the nation's history. And it's clear God's responsible. After explaining that there's a limit to what God has done and offering assurance that though he caused grief, he will have compassion according to the abundance of his steadfast love, the prophet then says, "For he does not afflict from his heart or grieve the children of men." Whether for our growth, our discipline, or the collateral damage that results from the judgment that sin has brought in this world, God must at times bring grief and affliction. But he doesn't do it from his heart. He doesn't enjoy it. He feels the heaviness of our pain. As he says in Ezekiel 18:32, I have no pleasure in the death of anyone. Our pain pains the heart of God. When we hurt, it hurts him. By contrast, God delights to bless us. Feel the enthusiasm expressed in a verse like Jeremiah 32:41. I will rejoice in doing them good. I will plant them in this land in faithfulness with all my heart and all my soul. When we're confronted with suffering, it's easy to think God has finally shown his true colors. We allow the pain to define God when the reality is he's grieved by it as well. He delights to bless us and is near to us in our trials. Always compassionate, always gracious. If you're wondering whether God cares, look at Jesus. His gentle and lowly heart finds its deepest expression at the cross, where he died for you. God isn't just watching you suffer, he's with you in it and doing something deeper than you can ever see in the moment. That's all for this time. If today's video has helped you get out of neutral, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to join us on the journey.